To make these, you just need a small piece of fabric. I'm going to just use this scrap of pink polka dot fabric, and I'm going to just freehand my pattern on here. If you don't feel confident doing this directly on the fabric, I suggest drawing out on paper and cutting that out until you're happy with it, and then using that paper template to cut your fabric. But I'm just going to freehand my design. I want it as two little ears, so that's a pretty simple design. Now that I have that, I'm going to go ahead and cut it on the white material as well. I have a scrap of white material. This white fabric that I'm using is not 100% cotton. I don't know what mix it is, but it is super wrinkly, and that's because it is just so soft. It is so nice to feel. It was a scrap that I actually cut up a garment to use for some other things. So I had this white piece and I thought this soft fabric would be perfect for a baby toy. But it does make it a little bit more difficult to cut with. You'll see I struggle cutting this around, and you wouldn't have that problem if you used maybe a fleece or a flannel or even just white cotton. But I definitely, because I used this mix of fabric, I definitely did have a little bit more problems, but I still like the way it turned out. Now that I have those two pieces, I'm going to go ahead and lay them right sides together. So for the pink one, that means the pretty side is facing the other side, and I'm going to sew around the edge, leaving an opening right in the middle where I'm not going to sew. I didn't show myself sewing around there, but once it is sewn, you're going to flip it inside out through that little hole that you didn't sew, that little opening. I am using a popsicle stick here. Either a popsicle stick or a chopstick really helps to get into those corners and turn it right side out. Now that I got both sides flipped out, I'm going to go ahead and sew over that little opening to close that up. So just very close to the edge, just 1/8 of an inch, sew right along there. Next, it's time to attach to our teething ring. So these are going to make an adorable little bunny ears. You're going to put them through the loop and then pull the ears through that other loop. Pull these out, and this turns out so cute and adorably. I absolutely love this. Those cute floppy ears attached to this. You'll see I'm pulling on them very tightly to make sure that they are secure and that they're not going to come off with lots of use. I'm going to make another one, and this time instead of bunny ears, it's going to be a whale's tail. So I have my fabric. I've chosen this aqua polka dot, and I'm just going to freehand a whale tail onto here. Now you can do this again on a piece of paper. First, trace it out and get a pattern, but I'm just going to go ahead and freehand it. Once I have one side that I like, I'm going to fold it over and cut out the other side. Now I probably should have made the middle part a little bit longer, just so that it sits better on the little teething ring, but I decided I'm just going to go with what I cut. Here I am making sure it's going to fit, and I would add a little bit, maybe like 1 inch to that. I cut out this white piece of fabric, and I'm going to put right sides together and sew all the way around, starting from one side around to the other, leaving about 1 inch opening right in the middle. Now that we've sewn that up, I'm going to take scissors and clip the corner pieces. So at the corner of each tail, I'm not going to cut through what I've sewn, but I'm just going to cut the excess off. That will make it so that when I turn this inside out, the corners will lay nice and flat and be crisp. I'm going to get out my popsicle stick again, turn this right side out. Just go slow as you're threading all these pieces through that tiny opening in the middle. And once you have them right side out, use that popsicle stick to really get into those corners and make sure that they are pushed out with no excess material folded up in there. Now that we have that done, we are going to go ahead and stuff it with some polyfill.
So I am just going to stuff the two ends. Popsicle stick really helps in this step too, making sure that you get a little wad of that up into that whale tail around those corners. Just go slow and working in smaller bits of polyfill. Sometimes I get restless and I want to stuff a whole bunch up in there at once, but it is much nicer to work with smaller bits little by little. Once you have one side of the tail nice and stuffed, you can go ahead and start on the other side. Once both ends are stuffed, we are going to go ahead and see that little opening, close that up by sewing over that. It's just a small little part. Then we are going to thread it onto our wood teething ring, fold it around, and our next step will be to sew right around the teething ring. We're going to lay this as flat as we can and then sew right here. It's going to be a little tough since the ends are stuffed, so just go slow. Work on pushing the polyfill tail ends down so that your needle and sewing machine can get around that wood ring and sew this nice and secure. I did backstitch at the very front of sewing this on, and I'm going to backstitch again at the end. And backstitching just goes over what you've previously sewn, and that really locks in the stitches, and especially for baby toys, you don't want any loose threads. And there you go. It's completed. I absolutely love it. This is such a fun little toy. It's got some bounce in it. The babies can chew on it. It is just so much fun. I love the way these turned out. I can't decide which one is my favorite. One is stuffed, one isn't stuffed, and I just think this is a great gift and toy to make. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.